Brad McConnell. I'm the Chief of Police, Charlottetown Police Services.
Sean Coombs, Deputy Chief, Criminal Investigations side of the house.
Jennifer McCarron, Deputy Chief, Patrol Services.
Tim Amy, Fire Chief.
City Councilor Kevin Ramsey.
Philip Brown, Office of the Mayor. And behind me is Jill Stewart.
And I missed a thing here. Is there any conflicts of interest, declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none? Okay. I need an approval for the agenda. Okay. Councillor Kevin Ramsey and Deputy Mayor Jankov, second. And reports and discussions. We'll start with fire. Yes. Amin?
Thank you, Chair. No operational update or operational report was put together just as we were going to give a bit of a meet and greet here today. So just wanted to give some general information in regards to the department and offer an opportunity as well as we have a new committee struck and it's our first time getting together for everybody to come over at a time if we can select one and take a tour both to Station 1 and then go out to Station 2 and you can get a real feel for everything that's on the ground, see a few of the people involved and obviously all of the apparatus and things like that. So maybe reach out prior to our next meeting on the 24th for a quick tour if anybody's up for that. As I mentioned, no operational report committed. Just report a little bit on a very busy year 2022 with Fiona in the mix, of course. All the firefighters were on deck for that. Due to some, I guess, volatility in pricing and supply, we are going to be carrying forward a number of items capital-wise this year. We can get into that more in the future meetings. But just because some equipment and apparatus weren't available for delivery, we've held off on the purchasing, but we can talk about that further. We average on the high end about 750 calls a year. That seems low to some people, but we don't do medical first responder as an outright call. If we did all of our medical responses in Charlottetown, we'd be in the thousands. But we do support Island Ambulance or Island EMS. But this past year, we had 1,101 calls. So you can see the call volume increase. Even without Fiona's about 245 in that 10-day period, we're still up over 850 calls. So a significant increase over previous years. Meaning a lot more alarms, a lot more incidents, and a lot more responses from the members and the apparatus. All those responses take the wear and tear on the apparatus as well, which is why we're on that continual replacement mode with those as well. Aside from that, we do have, as if you're not aware, a composite department next door and at Station 2 where we have career members and volunteer members. So that's part of the tour. We can walk and talk through that a little bit and just get an understanding of the department and the responsibilities and the duties that are expected of the members. Really, aside from that, Chair, it's just a matter of a meeting and willing to answer any questions you might have in regards to fire.
Thank you, Chief. I do have a question. I'm not sure what the thing, what's the status for or maybe it's the wrong meeting for the new station? Is there any updates?
No update at this point. The station design is complete. And we are at pause mode basically till we move forward with build. So no intent on that at this moment, but we're working forward with an operational plan and a strategic plan in line with the cities that will allow for that development.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, Mr. Chair? Chief, is there a timeline for that?
Not at this point, Your Worship, but we will be getting one soon with the first meeting of the committee coming up this month. And also our meetings, chiefs meetings, we have also next door to get our operational plan more in place. We should have something sooner than later, and that's the hope from all members of the department as well.
Thank you.
Fire updates. Where it says operational, is that for operational?
After fire operational, we turn over to police. I think that's yours on there, Brad.
Okay.
Charlie, on the agenda?
It says operational and personnel, so I'm not,
Yeah, that's where.
it goes over to the police?
Yeah, the first two items on the agenda reports For Alpha and Bravo, or A and B, they'll both fire. After that, it gets into police.
Mr. McConnell?
Chair, certainly welcome to the committee. We've always had a great working relationship with our committee with the police services, and we look forward to another great year with you as chair. We have some returning members with Councillor Ramsey and your worship, and Councillor Jankoff, I think, is sat on our committee before. So lots of great knowledge in this room. Like fire, we've had a very challenging year in 2022. The police services, averages about 14 to 15,000 calls for service a year in Charlottetown, and that's before any proactive initiatives like speeding tickets or anything proactive is done. That's just simply answering calls for service from the public. So very challenging, especially in times when we are, like many organizations, facing staffing challenges. However, I'm very proud to say that we have a great workforce with our CPS, a lot of pride in service, and we have met the challenges, and we will continue to work with this committee and through council to try to fill the voids that in our staffing that are currently there. We've also certainly been put on the forefront of a number of social issues in our community with homelessness and mental health, and they offer some very real and daily challenges regarding resources and collaboration, need for collaboration with our partners, both provincially and federally, to overcome these challenges. I have prepared a copy of our organizational chart, Chair, which I'd like to hand out to the group just so we could go through. You can see the structure of our police department. I can answer any questions you may have from that. Yeah. I'll give you a minute or so, Chair, to reflect on that, just to give you an idea of the scope of our policing organizations and how we're, and I can go through it from the top with me as chief, and then below me is my executive assistant, Jill Stewart, who's over in the corner there. And then we have our Deputy Chief of Uniformed Operations, that's Constable Jennifer McCarron, and our Deputy Chief of Criminal Investigations and Support Services, Deputy Coombs. We branch off into our Community Policing Unit, which you will get to know very well because a lot of your voices from the community will and concerns from the community will be answered in this area through our Community Action Team. And as you can see in that area, we also have our mental health officers, our wellness officers, and our bylaw officers. And under the uniformed operations, that's where our patrol sections lie. So we have 2 station sergeants that manage the daily operations, and each shift is assigned a corporal. And then on each shift, there's a number of constables, but we also, you see at the bottom, you'll see a little different labeling on the constables, and so each shift is assigned a priority tactical response and containment member for on each shift. So they answer any sorts of calls related to elevated risk that require some need for a tactical response or containment. As I move across the house and over to the investigations and support services side, we have our major crime unit. We have our forensic ident unit. We have our street crime unit. We have our civilian crime analyst, a civilian tech services officer that does helps out with the installation of such things like our e-watch cameras and supports the technology in our vehicles and in our building. We have a civilian digital forensic examiner that helps us deal with the challenges of technology that our officers face on every day. Not many instances we deal with these days that do not offer a technology challenge. So that person helps and assists the officers in extracting digital information from technology-related devices. Our training sergeant is certainly a busy position with the number of qualifications and standards that exist today for policing. Training and managing a training schedule is a full-time job. And certainly, as we've come through the last couple of years, getting all the training necessary has been extremely challenging. So we're looking forward to getting a little break in some of those training exercises we had to cram into last year that went unattended for a couple of years because of COVID. We have our provincial drug recognition coordinator that works under a training sergeant, our property and evidence custodian, and our court liaison officer. And then we move over to our sergeant that's in charge of support services and quality assurance. So it's very incumbent upon a professional police services day to make sure that there is auditing and quality assurance mechanism within their organizations, and that falls to this sergeant's responsibility. Underneath him, our civilian telecoms section and record sections, and also our ticket coordinator and receptionists, as well as our parking commissioners. So we have a lot of, as you can see, a lot of different aspects of our organization, a lot of moving parts. And as you get to know the committee, and we can help you guide help you guide through this organizational chart where the best access is to problem solve some of the issues that might come up through the committee.
Thank you for that, because that's it's very helpful just to look at that and be able to follow along and see what we got. A couple of questions. What kind of staff, what kind of numbers do you have for police services? How many officers, sergeants?
Yeah, so currently we have 65 sworn officers and we have about 18 civilian staff. I don't think I've made it any secret that we need to grow our police services to evolve to our current climate. Historically, we've been always able to rely on part-time summer officers to offset the population influx in the summer. And however, it's very challenging to acquire those part-time officers these days. And if you do find them, it's very difficult to get them trained to the standards that currently exist in such a short window of opportunity. So we need to continue to grow our police organization so we can properly staff it year-round in our city, which is growing immensely with not just in population but in diversity and challenges that face most modern communities.
Your training, is it in-house or is it external for requals and stuff?
It all depends, Chair, on what the subject matter is. We do a lot of in-house training on police act-related stuff that's year after year, but there's also a lot of specialized police training that we send officers to the Atlantic Police Academy and the Canadian Police College and beyond to obtain.
Thank you.
You know.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Chief, the school resource officers, is that on pause as of now? And will we be looking at that in the future again?
Yes, Councilor Ramsey, we're currently in a position where just because of staffing related issues, we're not able to fill those positions. We are in conversation with our partners to try to overcome this challenge. But it is an extended service we offer. And, having said that, we do believe in these positions and we've seen results in these positions before. And it's certainly our intention to try, do our best to make it work and continue on that pathway. And I hope we can achieve that.
Chief, you had mentioned bylaw officers. How many do we have?
Chair, we currently have one bylaw officer, Constable Todd Sutcliffe.
Okay. Is there a demand or need for more? How many calls would he have a year?
He's certainly a busy individual and we haven't done an needs assessment on any additional officers. It's certainly something I can look into. Bylaws are certainly a very important and very challenging part of the workload. But I can do some research in that area and get back to you on that. And it's certainly, again, it's another part of our policing that's, and when we look at our core policing services, and I'll use COVID as an example. So when COVID came very quickly and put us in a position where we had to retreat our organization to our core functions, what that core functions looked like was our patrol shifts and emergency dispatch. And that's what we consider as our organizational core functions. So everything else in there, although very important, are extended services that we've grown over the years. And so one of our main priorities is, certainly to grow and make our core functions sustainable. And if we were looking for additional positions, certainly it would be in those areas that would be our primary focus.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Chief, just under the ticket coordinator, I believe that's Mark King, correct?
That's correct, Your Worship.
So the two receptionists, are they the receptionists down in the lobby area, or are they upstairs with him?
No, they're all downstairs.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And just as a follow-up, Mr. Chair, for the bylaw enforcement officer, as the deputy knows, we are still going down that path to put in place a summary offense ticketing system. So if someone puts up a accessory building without a permit, then our bylaw enforcement officer or police could go out and provide, issue a ticket. And I think that will increase the amount of work for that role or that office. So we may have to look at, providing more resources, financial resources for the police department to address that new responsibility. And secondly, as for the police officers at the school or schools, the deputy mayor and myself, along with Councillor McCabe, attended a neighborhood meeting on New Year's Eve out in East Rowley, and the issue was around Stone Park School and some of the issues in the neighborhood. And I think that it's going to be important to get police officers back into the school to reestablish or pick up that rapport between police services, student population, and I think it's a missing part in community policing.
Your Worship, if I could just comment on that. So just to be clear, we've never had a school resource officer at Stone Park or the junior highs. We've always and still maintain our liaison officers and our Healthy Me program with the grade 6 classes, and we'll continue to do that. And we certainly see the value of playing a part in the continuity of a youth development. But the school resource officers isn't going to put an officer in Stone Park.
Thank you for clarifying that, Chief. What was discussed at the meeting is that the police officers that are at the two high schools was filtering down into the high school, junior highs, both Birchwood and Stone Park, because, again, you have a rapport, maybe not in the early grades of junior high, but in the later grades of junior high and the early grades of senior high. So that rapport, I think, was filtering through, and I think that was providing a window into the community as a way of establishing a better relationship between police services and the community in general. So yes, you're exactly right, and I failed to mention that, but it was, I think, just a filtering down. Thank you.
Chief, one other question that just come up when they were talking with the bylaws. Are there any of the bylaws for the city citable? Summary offense tickets able to be written for them?
Yes, Chair, there's a number of them, so if there's a penalty, if under a bylaw there's a penalty section, then they can be subject to our bylaw tickets, such as a noise complaint or like to a residence. So there are a number of them that can be chargeable under the enforcement section.
But, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, so is that under the summary offense ticketing system? Like, I think that's where we have an issue, because, yes, we can fine someone, like for the noise bylaw, but I think, does that ticket still can go to court like any ticket, of course, correct, Chief?
That's correct, Your Worship. There's a different mechanism to get it before the courts, different than our provincial summary offense tickets, but there's still a mechanism to have a hearing as part of it.
And the only reason I bring that up, and you probably know it yourself, Mr. Chair, because you're a conservation officer in a past life, but with some summary offense ticketing system, it just goes, if you don't pay it, if you say, I'm not going to pay it, or I dispute it, then you go to court, and we don't have to provide a lawyer. I think this will speed up, expedite our ticketing system, and prevent us from going to court all the time for issues that could be handled through a summary offense ticketing system.
Is that being worked on at this point to try to get it?
It's been asked for the last couple of years, and I think we're in the final lap on getting it through, because it will have to be part of the STR, short-term rentals regulations. That will be very important as an enforcement tool.
Okay. And Fire Chief, I have a question with you, I guess, with tickets. If you guys are called out to a fire in somebody's backyard and they're burning a bunch of environmental waste, do you guys have a means of issuing tickets from there, or how is that handled?
Yes, Chair, in the fire prevention bylaw, there's a full list of enforcement aspects and full list of penalties, and the same goes for our the fire prevention bylaw and also the fire services bylaw for the city. And we're involved in the new summary offense enforcement bylaw. It's not going to be a catch-all, but it is going to be a step forward. But yes, any fire violations are always addressed through the fire code, for the adopted codes and bylaws through the fire prevention bylaw.
Thank you. Community policing, you've addressed that, or? Is that
Chair,
something,
we
please?
haven't compiled our community policing report, and we'll do it at the month-end meeting. Again, as the fire chief indicated, today was more of an orientation, meet and greet, and certainly we'll provide our community policing report at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And number 5, introduction of new business. We touch on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to bring this up. During Fiona, the chief of police and the chief of fire services did an excellent job, but I did ask Sue Fraser about a debriefing or a follow-up, because there are a number of areas I think that were notified, or I shouldn't say notified, that were brought to our attention during Hurricane Fiona that I'd like to see as part of a debriefing report. What's the timeline for this debriefing for the Hurricane Fiona? Do we have anything in place, Chief Mamie or Chief McConnell?
Your worship, yes. Sue Fraser, as you mentioned, director, is working on that, and she's getting input from department heads still. I believe Public Works just filled out a bit more information. We are in the process of putting that together, and we hope to have that report for the 24th as well for committee. I am meeting with members doing a follow-up in regards to the provincial response on the 17th as well, and the information from that will be going forward into our brief as well.
And I appreciate that, Chief Mamie, because, you know, some of the issues that did come up during Fiona, for example, cell tower was not able to operate because they didn't have they weren't on the emergency list for refill for fuel or whatever they use to operate the backup, which could be diesel or gas. There was also some issues with senior residents in the city that, you know, we have to really follow up, because I know with Hurricane Dorian, I don't, you know, maybe I missed it, but I think there's always a debriefing report that follows a natural disaster such as Dorian or Fiona. So I'd really like to see it come back to this committee and then be forwarded to council so we can have an open discussion on it. And like, Fiona is just the start of more to come, and I think we have to prep ourselves to be ready for the next natural disaster as part of any emergency measures planning for the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have another question for Chief McConnell. Before the meeting, we had spoken there about calls coming in, and you said just have my constituents call the police. If it's a bylaw issue, should they ask specifically to speak to the bylaw officer, or they just call police and put the complaint in with the, you know, front staff or whoever answers the phone? I'll give you an
yes,
example. Sorry, I'll give you an example of what, like, one of these calls is like where out in my area where they're doing the new construction, mud being hauled up across all the roads, and like walking is becoming slippery for the seniors. So, do they?
So I believe that would be a Public Works related concern there. So, Chair, I would advise your consensus to have concerns relating to any of our policing functions to call our non-emergency number if it, that allows us to properly catalog and have situational awareness across our organization about these concerns. Although our bylaw officer's contact information is on our website, and he will generate the occurrences, oftentimes he's in the field, and so if they want to call our non-emergency number, they will certainly take their information and generate an occurrence for follow-up in relation to our bylaw.
Thank you, Chief. Anything else under new business?
Yeah, Chair, I just wanted to follow up. In terms of the question around the salt on the sidewalks, I believe over a month ago, Council had asked and requested that the manager of Public Works would put out a PSA informing the public of the process to which sidewalks get salted. And as far as I know, that has not been out yet, and I'm sure that would have been very helpful to those residents. So that's something that we may need to have Sue or whoever's here remind Public Works to get that out there. You recall that, Your Worship? Yeah, yeah. And the other thing I just wanted to flag, because it's January, we have a number of outdoor patios that they're falling under what was called the COVID-19 patio permission, and they are going to be coming due. So we need to figure out whether or not these patios are going to be able to continue on, how they apply. And although it's only January, they've spent a lot of money on these patios, so we have to really get that onto a committee meeting and see how we're going to proceed with those. And of course, ensuring that we apply the accessibility lens to each of those patios while we're doing that. Thank you.
Chair, if I could just comment on what Councillor Jankoff indicated there about the patio. She's absolutely right. The time is now to address those concerns, and we'll be, on our meeting on the 24th, we'll be bringing forth a briefing note to our committee on our recommendation on how to move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask that, could we look at the numbers pre-COVID-19, COVID-19 on what I know we expanded the numbers because we wanted to provide more opportunity for clients, customers to eat outside, so it'd be good to see the difference. And I don't know if it's that great, but that information will be important. And as Deputy Mayor Yankoff stated, the accessibility issue keeps coming up, and I know one that was installed did take a disabled parking space. I don't know how that happened, but hey, things do happen. So much appreciated, Chief Brad McConnell.
Thank you. Any other new business? Motion to adjourn? Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.